Now another method that will solve any quadratic equation is called the quadratic formula. It was derived from the steps we use in completing the square. Here is the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus, that yields the two solutions, square root b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. You might be like this little fellow that's saying it's not that bad, or you might be the one thinking, oh no. Now let's take a look at what we really do. You will start with a quadratic equation that is set equal to 0. This is important. Unlike completing the square where you have to have a constant on the right-hand side of the equation should be equal 0. Now, look at every coefficient and constant given. The first coefficient of x squared is always going to be the value of a. The second coefficient, which is on the x variable, will always be the value of b. Since that had a subtraction sign, we will call that -9. And the constant number that is on the side of the trinomial, that's the one without the x, that will always be the c. Again, it's a subtraction problem, so I will use -2. Now you take these three values, not the letter x, and you will plug these into the formula. If you work this formula several times, you'll have it memorized. That will be our answer. Now I have negative b. Well, that's the negative of -9. I normally put all values that I plug into this formula inside a parentheses. Plus minus, square root. Then b squared is -9 squared. Minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is -2, all divided by 2a, which is 2 again. Now you simplify. First, notice that the negative becomes a +9. Also notice that the 9 squared, 9 times 9, is 81. Now these three values at the back of the radicand under that radical symbol, those three numbers will always be multiplied together. So -4 times 2 is -8. -8 times -2 is +16. And then in addition to multiplying those three, you will also multiply the bottom of the fraction in the formula, and that will give me 4. Now inside my radicand, I have 97. Now this answer represents the two solutions. However, I need to see if that is divisible or if that is can be reduced, or if that can be simplified with the radical. If you think about the 97, it's a prime number, so it cannot be simplified. So the two answers would be 9 plus square root 97 over 4 and 9 minus square root 97 over 4. Here is another example. Notice how the quadratic equation is split in the middle by that equal sign. That's not going to help us, so we need to move our terms all to the left-hand side. I have 2x squared minus 8x minus 3 equals 0. So before choosing your A, B, C values for the formula, go ahead and make sure this is in standard form, which the quadratic equation must equal to 0. Now A will be 2, B will be -8, C will be -3. and I will substitute that into my formula. Negative b is negative 8 plus minus square root. B squared is negative 8 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 3, all over 2a. Now we must simplify. First, negative negative will give me 8 plus minus. Negative 8 squared will give me 64. Remember to multiply these three numbers that are in the end of the radicand or under the radical symbol. So negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 3 is positive 24. And in the bottom, go ahead and multiply those two numbers. 2 times 2 is 4. Now, let's simplify. 64 plus 24 will give me 88. And 88 is a radical that can be simplified. 88, if you think about it, can be multiplied, or its factors are 4 times 22. Now 22 is not a perfect square, but 4 is. So the square root of 4 is 2, and we can rewrite this as 8 plus or minus 2 square root 22, simplifying that radical. Now there's one more step to reduce this. Go ahead and take your fraction, put the 8 over the 4 plus minus 2 square root 2 over 4 and reduce. That first fraction, 8 over 4, is simply the number 2. And the 2 and 4 will reduce, leaving 1 over 2. And that is square root 22 over 2. You cannot reduce the 22 and 2 because 22 is a radicand. That answer represents both solutions.